Hey guys, what's up? Today we're going to talk about booster boxes and why we're not seeing as many recently, as well as what this means for your Pokemon investing going forward and how you should think about all of these things. So, why isn't Pokemon printing as many booster boxes? I see a lot of content going around saying, a lot of tinfoil hat theories from they they doing it on purpose so that the prices go up, so that demand stays high, and they know exactly what they're doing. I think it's all very misleading though. The real reason is pretty simple actually. So earlier in 2025, big box stores basically told Pokemon, you have to use your allocation space in our stores or you're going to lose it. We're going to give it to other people. And so that's exactly what they did. They started printing more, premium collection boxes, SPCs, UPCs, products that take up a lot of space physically, so they can fill up that space because they don't want to lose that space, obviously. So, really, what it comes down to is just that. That's the reason why they're not printing as much. Booster boxes are the most compact product and they take up the least space. So it makes sense why they wouldn't print any of these, knowing that big box is pressuring them to take up space. And so obviously you have things like this happening where the DR booster box, is pushing almost $500 and it's not even been a year after release. So what does this mean for you as a Pokemon investor? Because booster boxes have always been the blue chip premium product when it comes to investing, right? This isn't financial advice, but here's how I'm changing my strategy going forward with all of this. I'm not buying Destin Rivals booster boxes at this price. For me, the risk to reward there is just not favorable. I think at any given point in time, Pokemon can flip the switch. They've done so in the past. If you've been here in the space for a while, you know exactly what I'm talking about. They go through these periods where they'll push certain products more than others. Sometimes it's ETBs, sometimes it's booster boxes. Right now we're seeing SPCs, UPCs, and collection boxes. And if they choose to turn the faucet back on for booster boxes, there's a long way to fall for products like this, right? And so how I'm doing this is I'm buying it at release and seeing if I can get drops, from like Pokemon Center for MSRP, whatever. That's pretty free, right? The moment you get it, you're already up on your money. I'm not buying, modern or ultra modern at these elevated prices because I know this demand right now and this lack of supply is could be temporary. It could be, that they never print booster boxes again. It's unlikely, but anything can happen, and nobody really has a crystal ball to say for sure. But the way you want to look at it is risk to reward, right? So if you were to buy this at this elevated price and it gets, cut in half or even worse, goes to MSRP, that's more than half a cut. Are you okay with that? I think there's so many plays in the market right now where you could put this $468 into and just buy multiple of them, and still the risk to reward would be way, way more favorable. And I think it's important to look in those places. I'm also curious, leave in the comment, what are you investing in right now? I'm very curious to see what everyone's up to. Um, So I'm trying to buy booster boxes on release for, MSRP obviously, and I'm not buying it throughout at least the first year. I want to see, what Pokemon decides to do. If they keep doing this and the price, runs away from me, then so be it. The risk to reward wasn't there in the first place, and it won't be when it's elevated even higher. I think there's so many other plays. And another thing is the a lot of people have talked about it, but I don't think people give it enough, weight, which is the new factory coming in 2027. Things like this Destin Rival booster box will be covered as, that new factory opens up. And that factory is no joke. It's a ginormous factory. Uh to sit here and say, "Oh, you don't have to worry about that," I think is very foolish. If you really do care about your investments and your capital, I think it's very important to take that into account, especially if you're a so-called long-term investor, right? You want to look forward in the long term, and that is one of the biggest negative catalysts that could push the prices of these down. So, not only do you want to, wait and be more patient when selecting booster boxes, you also want to be more selective on which booster boxes you get. I think the older boxes are definitely safer, but they might appreciate slower. Um, Modern, the earlier half of Scarlet and Violet, we're already seeing some appreciation there. Those won't most likely won't get covered by that factory. So in my eyes, they're a lot safer. But overall, I think you want to be more picky and try to avoid the ones that are, towards the end of Scarlet and Violet, just to avoid, any complications in the long term with that factory. So you have, number one, being more patient, and number two, being more selective on which products you buy. And I think the last point I want to touch on is your expectations, going forward. What does this all mean? So now you know why they're printing less booster boxes. What can you expect? Well, I'm not saying I'm going to be 100% right on this, but here's what I think. I think going forward, you're going to see a lot of slower growth. You're not going to see like 900% gains in a year. Uh, you might see, something much more humble, like 20-30%. I can still see that. Or maybe even 50%. Maybe even 2x. But I think the days of, doubling, tripling, quadrupling plus your money are pretty much done, as long as they don't print these booster boxes. Because you have to think about it this way: when they print all these, SPCs, UPCs, and collection boxes, there's a lot of packs and singles in the market, right? So if the single prices stay, low, and there's a lot of selling pressure and there's a lot of supply of them and not enough demand, then these boxes are also going to have a hard time appreciating. It's hard to have a box that's super expensive when the singles inside are extremely cheap. I mean, you've got a lot of good examples, like, the earlier Sword and Shield sets, Vivid Voltage, or like a Darkness Ablaze. It, I mean, those are old sets, but they're still pretty cheap compared to the other booster boxes, even the more modern ones. So I think you really want to expect less going forward. This is what I'm trying to say. Um, and we'll talk about, SBCs and UPCs and collection boxes in a future video. But I briefly touched on it in my last video as well, and I kind of told people, don't buy collection boxes as investments. They're just not good plays. Uh, and a common misconception is that, oh, but you get a lot of value in the packs. If you're interested in that, watch my last video. I explain it in full there. But that's all I really wanted to touch on today. Um, Let me know your thoughts, comments. Thanks for watching.